Hello, welcome to Sport Vibes on DNTWOK. My name is Bolaji and I'm your host. Of course, this is the channel where you get to catch up with the latest updates and, of course, top quality content across the world of sport, from Formula 1 to the NBA, talk about tennis, football, just name it. So this week on the show, we will be focusing more on football because there's been a lot of action, not on the pitch now, on the sideline, in the dressing room, behind the scenes in football. Talking about coaches getting hired and fired, getting employed and disemployed. There's also updates from the world of Formula 1 because over the weekend we had an exciting Grand Prix in Mexico City. So just stay tuned and get set for this ride. I told you earlier that we would be talking about football and Formula 1, and now let's get right to it because Red Bull's Max Verstappen took a dominant victory in Mexico City Grand Prix to strengthen his chances of a first World Championship. Verstappen's title rival Lewis Hamilton was second, the Mercedes driver holding up a charge from Verstappen's teammate Sergio Perez in the closing laps. Verstappen's ninth win in 2021 gives him a 19-point lead with 4 races and a total of 107 points remaining. Hamilton's teammate Valtteri Bottas deprived the Dutchman of the point for the fastest lap on the final tour. The victory puts Verstappen in a commanding position in the championship. A 1-3 finish moved Red Bull to just 1 point behind Mercedes in the Constructors' Championship. Of course, there's still a lot to play for in the world of Formula 1. There's still a lot to race for, if you'd like to put it that way. There's still 107 points up for grabs, and you know Lewis Hamilton, that man is a serial winner. Talking about Formula 1, but remember, Max has been impressive this season. Verstappen has been great as well, and you don't expect him to just let go of the lead. So that makes for an exciting finish. 4 races to go, 1 in Brazil coming up next, and of course 3 in the Middle East. So we keep our fingers crossed and expect the very best as ever from the world of Formula 1. Now let's take a quick break now. When we return, we'll talk about football.
On we go! Verstappen is into the lead, ahead of Hamilton. Bottas gets tagged by Daniel Ricciardo. Perez goes onto the grass. He wins the Mexico City Grand Prix. Max Verstappen crosses the line, a long, long way clear of the rest.
And now let's move to football now because it's really been about managers lately. Managers being employed and managers being disemployed. Because come to think about it, who sacks a manager after a victory? You'd expect a victory to restore the team's chances and to reinvigorate the team, to revitalize them. But Norwich City are taking a different turn because they have sacked their manager Daniel Farke. This comes after their 2-1 victory over Brentford. Just listen to the story. The Canaries, that's Norwich City, ignited their survival bid with a 2-1 victory over Brentford in what was their first win of the season. But in an unexpected twist following the win, the club announced just hours after the victory that they had parted company with the manager. This is the club statement. "We feel that now is the right time for a change to give ourselves the best opportunity of retaining our Premier League status." So that is what it is about these managers getting sacked. Clubs just want to retain their status as teams in the top flight. But before we talk so much about that, let's look at another fellow strugglers, talking about Aston Villa, because they have also sacked their manager Dean Smith after just 3 years in charge. 3 years is a lot for managers these days. If you've spent 3 years in a certain club, I think kudos to you. And this is a statement from Aston Villa. "We have decided to make a change now to allow time for a new head coach to make an impact." The club says that the process to replace Smith has started, but they will not rush into an immediate appointment. So as I said earlier, that is what it is about these clubs. They want to stay in the Premier League. They know the disparity between the top flight and the championship. Falling down the ladder is a very dangerous thing. Nonetheless, we just hope there's reduction in the rates, with the rates at which managers get sacked, because you want stability in your club. You want the players to know that this is the manager that will still be with them for the nearest future. You don't want to be disrupting teams, but I am not the owner of these clubs. They have to make the decision that seems right to them. So now we move on from Aston Villa and Norwich City, and let's take a quick flight to Spain and talk about yet another manager, because this is a really big one. It is a big one. This is the news many Barcelona fans have been waiting for, and now it has finally happened. That big announcement, that big manager. But before we talk so much about it, I know you are guessing or you already know who it is. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about Barcelona. Alright, you're welcome back. This is still Sport Vibes on DNTWOK, and we've talked about quite some things before the break. We talked about the Formula One. We talked about coaches being fired and being hired in the Premier League. Of course, the announcements have been about the sacking much more recently, but earlier before that of Norwich City's Daniel Farke and that of Aston Villa's then Smith, we had Cisco Munoz getting sacked at Watford. We had Steve Bruce leaving Newcastle on mutual consent, and we also had Nuno Espirito Santo leaving Tottenham Hotspur. And let's talk about Barcelona, because Barcelona have finally made that big announcement that Xavi Hernandez, their legend, their once upon a time midfield maestro, is their new head coach. Xavi made 767 appearances for the senior team, and that was a club record up until recently when Lionel Messi broke the record. And I'll just read out some quick stats in case you're wondering who Xavi Hernandez is. Just listen to this about Xavi, because in his 17-year stint in the first team, that was between 1998 and 2015, he won 25 major trophies. Yes, you had that right, 25 major trophies, and I'll break them down now. 8 La Liga titles, 4 Champions Leagues, 3 Copa del Rey, 2 Club World Cups, 2 European Super Cups, and 6 Spanish Cups. That's some illustrious career for Xavi as a player, and now he's back as a manager. But before I go into that, he was at the club for a total of 24 years, beginning as an under 12 in 1991-1992 season. So you see, Xavi is a legend at Barcelona, an absolute legend. But don't forget, Ronald Koeman was a legend too. So talking about Barcelona appointing coaches who were once players at the club, I think maybe that of Koeman didn't go as many wanted, but Pep Guardiola remains one of the best decisions Barcelona has made. Talking about appointing him to be the head coach of the senior team between 2008 and 2012. So I'm sure a lot of fans are looking forward to something similar, if not more, from Xavi Hernandez. So we keep our fingers crossed, but it's not always like that in football. This is not to be a prophet of doom. Of course, I want the best clubs to keep doing well in football, but it's not always mathematics when it comes to football. Barcelona, a big team, used to winning. Their fans right now, they seem not to understand the kind of situation the club in, despite all the reality facing them, because when you're used to winning big things and then you're going through a season as this, it might be hard to take, really. It might be hard to take, but we've seen that with Thierry Henry. We've seen that with Frank Lampard. They were not bad coaches entirely, but they were not as good a coach in their stints as they were as players. Thierry Henry, Frank Lampard, these are absolute legends, not just in the Premier League, but when you're talking about football as a whole. Yet they had their own struggles. Talk about Gary Neville too. They had their own struggles as the head coach of certain clubs, from Monaco to Chelsea, and then Gary Neville at Valencia. So for Barcelona, they would hope, the fans would definitely hope, and of course the hierarchy at the club would hope. The case is different with Xavi. Xavi is coming from outside, coming to Barcelona, leaving his contract, of course, and they seem to have found a way around that. They did the same with Ronald Koeman too when he left the job at the Netherlands to join Barcelona. So he still has enough time to save their season, but their target will definitely be to build now. It's not about an immediate success. It's about looking at those youngsters, those exciting youngsters they've got in their team, man. Looking at making wonderful outputs out of their potentials. Xavi is a man that should know about that. Himself was a product of the La Masia, and I think that is the advantage. That is what the clubs want to do. When you have someone that knows so much about the club, inside out, he knows the fans, he knows the winning mentality. He comes to the sidelines, he comes to the dressing room, and the players respect him. Oh, this is Xavi. Frankie De Jong, for example, sees Xavi and goes on thinking, this is the man I was watching as a young man, as a young boy. That is part of the psychological aspect of the game that will definitely be an advantage. So we wish Xavi Hernandez the best at Barcelona. And now let's take a quick flight back to England and talk about this news that has been doing the rounds. It's about Arsenal. Arsenal won Watford 1-0. And of course, Arsenal, one of the most informed teams right now in the Premier League. 10 matches unbeaten. The club flying, if you can use the word, but their victory over Watford had a bit of controversy, and Claudio Ranieri, the Watford coach, made a complaint about that, and I'll narrate the situation. Arsenal went on to score after Danny Rose, a Watford player, had played the ball out for a throw-in because one of his teammates, Ozan Tofan, was injured. Of course, in football, you'd expect that to be a fair play. When you throw in, you pass to the opponent because they play the ball out willingly. But Arsenal did not do that. They went on playing and then ended up scoring. Emile Smith-Rowe scoring for the third consecutive Premier League game. Something similar had happened with Arsenal before, and it did not just end there. There was also a reaction from a former Arsenal manager talking about Arsene Wenger, who has demanded that the match be replayed. Because this is not the first time that is happening with Arsenal. In the year 1999 in the FA Cup, Arsenal were facing Sheffield United in a 5th round tie, and something similar happened. Nwankwo Kanu to Mark Overmars, who led to a goal. That goal was eventually the winning goal in the match, but Arsene Wenger demanded that the match be replayed, and the opposing coach Steve Bruce accepted the offer, with the FA also consenting. So that led to a replay of that match, which Arsenal won 2-1 again, as they did in the first one that was cancelled. So do you see a repeat of that happening with Arteta and Arsenal this time around? Definitely not. That was Arteta's 100th game in charge. The club is flying right now. A lot seems to be going well for them, so you don't expect them to throw that into the air. Of course, they were the dominant team as well in that match, let's not forget, but it's quite understandable on Ranieri's part. You feel hard done by when that is the only goal that decides such a crucial game. So that is how far we would go on the show today. Thank you so much for joining us on Sport Vibes on DNTWOK. My name is Bolaji Alimi. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and of course Telegram. Thank you so much. Bye for now.